Welcome to Nocturne Terror, where darkness finds a home, and tonight we're unlocking the doors to Canada's 15 most haunted houses. From Craigdarroch Castle, where a coal baron's widow still watches from her windows, to Colborne Lodge, where a woman's dying breaths echo through time, these locations hold more than just history. They hold the souls of those who never left. We've gathered eyewitness accounts, historical records, and chilling evidence that proves some places are too haunted to ignore. So turn off your lights, lock your doors, and prepare yourself for a journey into the supernatural. Because what you're about to see has driven some viewers to experience strange occurrences in their own homes, as if something follows them back through the screen.
Number 1. Craigdarroch Castle, Victoria, British Columbia. Craigdarroch Castle stands as an imposing Victorian mansion perched on a hill overlooking Victoria, British Columbia. Built between 1887 and 1890, this 39-room Scottish baronial masterpiece was commissioned by Robert Dunsmuir, a Scottish immigrant who made his fortune in Vancouver Island coal. The castle's history begins with tragedy. Robert Dunsmuir died in 1889, never seeing his dream home completed. His widow, Joan Olive Dunsmuir, moved into the castle with their daughters and lived there until her death in 1908. After her passing, the castle served various purposes: a military hospital, a college, a music conservatory, and finally a museum. The reported hauntings at Craigdarroch are numerous and persistent. Staff and visitors frequently report the apparition of a woman in white, believed to be Joan Dunsmuir, often seen descending the main staircase or gazing out from upper floor windows, piano music playing when no one is near the instrument, the phantom smell of burning candles in empty rooms, children's laughter echoing through the hallways. Possibly connected to the Dunsmuir's grandchildren, a woman in a ball gown who appears briefly in the dance hall during special events. One of the most compelling accounts comes from a former security guard who reported seeing a woman in period dress walking through a second-floor corridor before vanishing through a solid wall. Museum staff have documented dozens of unexplained incidents, including objects moving on their own and doors that lock or unlock without explanation. Today, Craigdarroch Castle is a National Historic Site that attracts both history buffs and paranormal enthusiasts who hope to catch a glimpse of its spectral residents. Number 2. Mackenzie House, Toronto, Ontario. Located in downtown Toronto, the modest Greek Revival row house at 82 Bond Street holds a significant place in Canadian history and paranormal lore. Built in 1857, it was presented as a gift to William Lyon Mackenzie, Toronto's first mayor and leader of the 1837 Upper Canada Rebellion, by his supporters after he returned from exile in the United States. Mackenzie only lived in the house for 3 years before his death in 1861, but his presence, along with others, seems to have never left. The house operated as a rooming house for years before being restored and opened as a museum in 1950. The paranormal activity at Mackenzie House includes the distinct sound of a printing press operating in the basement. Mackenzie was a newspaper publisher, and a press is displayed in the house. A spectral woman, believed to be Mackenzie's wife Isabel, often seen in the bedroom and kitchen. The piano that plays by itself, typically late at night, playing period music from the 19th century. Objects disappearing and reappearing in different locations. Visitors and staff being touched by unseen hands. Particularly on the second floor, one former curator reported that she would often arrive in the morning to find chairs rearranged in the parlor as if someone had hosted a meeting overnight. Another staff member described watching the rocking chair move on its own while the room temperature dropped dramatically. The most famous incident occurred in the 1960s when a caretaker living on the third floor woke to see Mackenzie himself, recognizable from portraits, standing at the foot of his bed, before slowly fading away. Number 3. Dufferin County Museum House, Rosemont, Ontario. The Dufferin County Museum House, located in the rural community of Rosemont, wasn't originally built to be a museum. Constructed in the 1870s as a farmhouse for the Reed family, this Victorian structure served as a family home for generations before being converted into a museum in the mid-20th century. The museum now houses artifacts from throughout Dufferin County's history, but those artifacts aren't the only things from the past that linger here. Staff and visitors report numerous unsettling experiences. The distinct presence of a young girl, approximately 8 to 10 years old, who has been seen playing in the upstairs bedrooms, and on the staircase her laughter is frequently heard. especially during quiet afternoons, cold spots that move through rooms. Following visitors, disembodied voices that seem to be having conversations in empty rooms, items and display cases that rotate or change position overnight. Historical records show that a young girl named Emma Reed died of scarlet fever in the house in 1883. Many believe she is the child spirit that continues to play in her former home. Museum staff have documented instances where toys in the children's bedroom exhibit have been rearranged when no one was present. One particularly chilling account came from a visiting teacher who was alone in the parlor when she distinctly heard a child's voice say, "Do you want to play with me?" When she turned around, no one was there, but a small rocking chair in the corner was gently moving. The museum has embraced its paranormal reputation, occasionally hosting ghost tours and paranormal investigations that consistently yield unexplainable results. Number 4. Glenmore House, Belleville, Ontario. Glenmore House stands as one of Belleville's finest examples of Victorian architecture. Built in 1883 by wealthy merchant James Phillips for his wife Harriet and their 5 children, the mansion features intricate woodwork, stained glass windows, and a distinctive turret that makes it instantly recognizable in the neighborhood. The Phillips family enjoyed a privileged life in the home until tragedy struck. In 1896, Harriet died suddenly in the master bedroom after a brief illness. James, overcome with grief, reportedly never entered the room again and died 3 years later in another part of the house. The paranormal activity at Glenmore House centers largely around Harriet Phillips, the apparition of a woman in Victorian-era clothing, matching descriptions of Harriet. Frequently seen in the dining room where she loved to entertain, the master bedroom remains unusually cold. Even during summer months, the sounds of a woman softly weeping have been reported by numerous visitors. The scent of lilac perfume, Harriet's favorite, appears suddenly in various rooms. Table settings in the dining room have been found rearranged in the morning, as if set for a formal dinner. After the Phillips family, the house changed hands several times before being converted into a museum in the 1950s. One former docent reported that during quiet weekday afternoons, she would hear footsteps overhead, following the exact path that Harriet would take when checking on her children. The most compelling evidence of haunting occurred in 1978 when a photographer capturing images for a historical society publication discovered the clear figure of a woman in period dress standing in the background of a photo of the dining room, a figure that wasn't visible when the photo was taken. Number 5. Bytown Museum, Ottawa, Ontario. The Bytown Museum, housed in Ottawa's oldest stone building, stands as a testament to the city's early days. Constructed in 1827 as a commissariat building to store supplies during the construction of the Rideau Canal, this sturdy limestone structure has served many purposes over nearly 2 centuries. The building functioned as a treasury, a storage facility, and briefly as housing for canal workers before eventually becoming a museum in 1917. Named after Bytown, Ottawa's original name before it became Canada's capital, the museum chronicles the city's evolution from frontier settlement to national capital. The paranormal activity in the Bytown Museum includes the spirit of Duncan McNabb, a former caretaker who lived and died in the building in the late 1800s, frequently seen on the top floor, objects that move on their own. Particularly in the military exhibits, the sound of heavy boots walking across wooden floors when no one is present, cold spots that appear suddenly, even during Ottawa's sweltering summer months, the distinct feeling of being watched. Reported by both staff and visitors, one of the most persistent phenomena involves the museum's artifacts themselves. Staff have documented numerous incidents where items have been moved overnight despite the building being securely locked. Security cameras have captured unexplained orbs of light moving through exhibits. A particularly unsettling experience was reported by a night security guard who heard a man's voice clearly say "get out" when he was alone in the building. The same guard later witnessed a tall male figure in period clothing standing at the top of the stairs before vanishing when approached. The museum's position next to the Rideau Canal locks, where numerous workers died during construction, has led some paranormal researchers to suggest that the building may be haunted not just by Duncan McNabb, but by multiple spirits connected to the canal's bloody history. Number 6. Rutherford House, Edmonton, Alberta. Rutherford House, an elegant Edwardian mansion in Edmonton's University District, was once home to Alexander Cameron Rutherford, Alberta's first premier and founder of the University of Alberta. Built in 1911, this stately red brick home exemplifies the refined tastes and prosperity of early 20th century Alberta. The Rutherford family lived in the house until Alexander's death in 1941, after which his wife Maddie remained until her passing in 1962. The house was nearly demolished for university expansion before being saved and restored as a provincial historic site in 1973. The reported paranormal activity includes the apparition of Maddie Rutherford, often seen in her bedroom or in the garden she tended with care doors that open and close by themselves, particularly in the library where Alexander spent many hours. The phantom scent of baking, emanating from the kitchen even when it's not in use, lights that turn on and off without explanation, the sound of someone walking up and down the main staircase late at night. Staff members have reported numerous encounters with what they believe is Maddie's protective presence. One docent described entering the morning room to find a vase of fresh flowers had been rearranged in Maddie's preferred style, despite no one having access to the room overnight. Visitors have reported seeing a ghostly butler figure, believed to be the Rutherfords' longtime servant James, still faithfully attending to his duties. He's most often spotted in the dining room or butler's pantry. The most compelling evidence of haunting occurred during a restoration project in the 1990s when workers repeatedly found their tools moved or missing, only to discover them neatly arranged in another room. A photograph taken during this period shows an unexplained female figure looking down from an upstairs window when the building was supposed to be empty. Number 7. Bell House, Calgary, Alberta. Bell House stands apart from many haunted locations because of its unassuming appearance. This modest two-story house in Calgary's historic Inglewood neighborhood was built in 1906 for the Bell family, who operated a successful mercantile business in the growing frontier city. The house changed hands several times over the decades before gaining its reputation for paranormal activity in the 1950s when new owners began reporting strange occurrences. Unlike many haunted locations, Bell House has remained a private residence throughout its history, though different families have come and gone, some staying only briefly before being driven away by unexplainable events. The haunting of Bell House centers around the mysterious lady in white, a female figure dressed entirely in white, often seen looking out from upper floor windows. The apparition typically appears at dusk or dawn, sometimes accompanied by a cold mist. Previous owners report hearing a woman softly singing lullabies in empty rooms. Objects in the house, particularly those belonging to women, jewelry, clothing, personal items, frequently disappear and reappear in different locations unexplained. Banging sounds that seem to follow a pattern, almost like someone trying to communicate. Historical research points to a tragedy in the 1920s when a young mother named Catherine Bell, no relation to the original owners, died in childbirth in the master bedroom. Her infant survived only a few days. Many believe Catherine's spirit remains in the house, still looking for her child. One former resident reported waking to find a woman in white sitting at the edge of her bed, gently stroking her hair. When she switched on the light, the figure vanished. Another family described how children's toys would be arranged in circles overnight, as if someone had been playing with them. The current owners have made peace with their spectral roommate, noting that the activity seems to increase around the anniversary of Catherine's death in early November. Number 8. Halifax Citadel Houses, Halifax, Nova Scotia. The Halifax Citadel, a star-shaped fortress overlooking Halifax Harbour, was constructed between 1828 and 1856 as part of British defences in colonial Canada. While the fortress itself never saw battle, it housed thousands of soldiers over decades of operation. The officers' quarters, a row of stone houses adjacent to the main fortification, have become notorious for paranormal activity. These residences housed military personnel and their families throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries before the citadel was decommissioned as an active military base. Today, these buildings are part of the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site, with some serving as museums and others as administrative offices. The haunting of the Halifax Citadel Houses includes the lonely sentry, a young soldier in period uniform frequently seen patrolling outside the houses at night. Phantom footsteps that sound exactly like military boots on wooden floors. The sound of military drums and bagpipes when no performers are present. Doors that slam shut even when there's no draft. Full-bodied apparitions of soldiers in Victorian-era uniforms appearing briefly before vanishing. One of the most well-documented spirits is believed to be a young private who died by suicide in his barracks in the 1850s. Staff and visitors have reported seeing him walk his eternal patrol route, rifle over his shoulder, before disappearing at the spot where he reportedly took his life. Paranormal investigators have recorded EVP, electronic voice phenomena, sessions with what appear to be military commands, and the sounds of men speaking in 19th century English dialects. Temperature drops of 15 to 20 degrees have been measured in specific rooms when these phenomena occur. During a renovation in the 1990s, workers uncovered a previously unknown cellar beneath one of the houses, containing military items and personal effects. Paranormal activity reportedly increased dramatically after this discovery, leading some to believe that the disturbance awakened dormant spirits. Number 9. Beaconsfield House, Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Beaconsfield House stands as one of Prince Edward Island's most impressive examples of Victorian architecture. Built in 1877 for wealthy shipbuilder and merchant James Peake Jr. This 8,000-square-foot mansion features impressive bay windows, a mansard roof, and ornate woodwork throughout. James Peake's time in the grand home was tragically brief. Shortly after moving in, he suffered devastating financial losses when many of his ships were lost at sea. By 1882, he was forced to sell the house to pay his debts. After losing Beaconsfield, Peake's health declined rapidly, and he died a broken man in 1884. The paranormal activity at Beaconsfield House centers around several entities. James Peake himself, whose heavy footsteps are often heard in the upstairs hallway, and on the main staircase the apparition of a Victorian-era maid, seen dusting furniture and adjusting curtains, doors that open and close by themselves. Particularly in the library, the sound of a child running and laughing in the upper hallways. A woman in black, possibly Peake's wife, who has been spotted looking out from the upper windows. After the Peake family, the house served as a hotel, an apartment building, and a residence for student nurses before being purchased by the PI Museum and Heritage Foundation in 1972 and restored to its Victorian splendor. Museum staff have documented numerous unexplained occurrences, including items moving overnight and the distinct smell of pipe tobacco, James Peake's preferred habit, appearing suddenly in his former study. Visitors have reported feeling a sudden heaviness or sadness upon entering certain rooms, particularly Peake's office, where he received news of his financial ruin. One of the most compelling accounts came from a caretaker who was locking up one winter evening when he clearly saw a man in Victorian dress standing at the top of the main staircase. When approached, the figure turned and walked through a closed door. Number 10. Cornish House, Winnipeg, Manitoba. The Cornish House, situated in Winnipeg's historic Armstrong's Point neighborhood, was built in 1913 for prominent lawyer William Cornish and his family. The red brick Edwardian home features wraparound verandas, detailed woodwork, and large windows that were the height of early 20th century elegance. The Cornish family's time in the house was marked by both joy and tragedy. In 1917, their 12-year-old daughter Adelaide fell down the main staircase and later died from her injuries. The heartbroken family continued to live in the house until William's death in 1928, after which his widow sold the property and moved away. The reported hauntings at Cornish House include the spirit of young Adelaide, often seen on or near the staircase where she had her fatal accident, objects that move on their own, particularly in what was once Adelaide's bedroom, cold spots that appear suddenly, even when the heating system is functioning properly, knocking sounds that seem to follow a pattern, often in sets of 3, the sound of a child's laughter or crying, typically heard in the early evening. After the Cornish family, the house changed hands several times and was eventually divided into apartments in the 1940s. Tenants throughout the decades reported unusual occurrences, with many specifically mentioning a young girl in early 20th century clothing who would appear briefly before vanishing. The house was restored to a single-family dwelling in the 1980s. During this renovation, workers discovered a small cache of toys hidden in a wall cavity near Adelaide's former bedroom, dolls, jacks, and a child's diary dated 1917. Paranormal activity reportedly increased dramatically after these items were removed. One family who lived there in the 1990s reported that their young daughter had an invisible friend named Addie who she would talk to regularly. The parents were unaware of the house's history until neighbors told them about Adelaide Cornish.
If you survived this terrifying journey through Canada's most haunted houses, prove your courage by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell to join the Nocturne Terror family. Because our exploration of the paranormal has only just begun, and next week we're venturing into abandoned asylums where patients never truly left. Drop a ghost emoji in the comments if you've ever experienced something unexplainable. Tell us which haunted house terrified you most, or share your own supernatural encounters, because your stories fuel our investigations into the darkest corners of the unknown. And remember, at Nocturne Terror, we don't just tell ghost stories, we live them. So sleep well tonight if you can, because when darkness falls, terror rises.